That's the treatment. All right. Now, I must say that disulfiram, apart from it was mentioned also this morning that it's being seriously examined as a treatment against cancer. You know, it's not a very specific compound. And so, but people who have, you know, alcohol abuse problems have been taking it for months, if not for months, on a daily basis. There are some side effects, but you know, it is reasonably safe. And so here's a test against bacteria. You see the minimal inhibitory concentration against Borrelia burgdorferi is 0.2 microgram per ml, and then for others it's much higher. So there's something in Borrelia burgdorferi and other spirochetes, which we also tested, that this compound attacks. We are figuring out the mode of action of the compound, and you know, once we figure the mode of action, we'll publish this. We usually hold off, you know, on publishing unless we have the full story. But what we found really very encouraging is we tested its ability of this compound to kill Borrelia. You see on the right hand, here on the panel, disulfiram came up as the best killing agent of all that we tested, and this is treating a stationary population of Borrelia that has considerable amount of persister cells, so it kills persisters, and that's what we found to be very intriguing. Okay, so fast forward from those modest experiments and from the fact that this compound also showed up in a screen that the J. Rajasan is going to be talking about, I understand, probably next, and published. It's also showed up in his screen. So Brian Fallon initiated a clinical trial. My team is participating in this. We're providing microbiome analysis for this trial. And Brian is telling me that he is having problem recruiting patients, which I found surprising. But the main problem is that patients knowing about this activity, they simply go to their doctor and they get prescribed disulfiram and they don't have to enroll in our clinical trial.
Somebody's sitting here.
Which is unfortunate because, you know, at the end of the day, the only thing that will convince doctors in general to adopt a certain treatment for Lyme disease is the result of a properly performed clinical trial. Everything else is kind of useful but preliminary. Okay. So, finally, want to tell you what we found so far from our effort at discovering selective compounds against Borrelia burgdorferi using natural products. So this is really our area of expertise. We've been doing this for a while. We developed a new method to grow previously uncultured bacteria that gives us access to a large number of potential producers of antibiotics from nature. And we use them again in this very simple selective screen where we select for extracts that are active against Borrelia but not Staph aureus. Then we take that extract, separate it, identify the principal component. And here's our best lead so far. We determined the structure of this compound. LymeMind in my lab discovered it. And there are two things about this compound, which first of all, I was convinced that this is a novel compound because no compound has been described that selectively acts against Borrelia or spirochetes from natural sources. So I knew that whatever we discovered was going to be novel. And the second, looking at the structure of this compound, I understand most of you are not chemists, but this compound looks to me like a sugar, and it's not supposed to penetrate into cells. It's very water soluble. So I had no idea how the hell this molecule, could kill Borrelia based on the structure. So anyway, so the first thing that we found looking at the database is that this is a known compound. That was a big surprise to us. Discovered in 1943, happens to be the year when I was born. And abandoned, so the mechanism of action was determined. It binds to the ribosome, so it inhibits protein synthesis. Actually, Tom Stites, who got the Nobel Prize for the structure of the ribosome, worked on this compound, and I interrogated him about it. So that was a surprise, and here is why it was abandoned. It's a lousy antibiotic. It just has very poor activity against everything. And I asked Tom Stice, why were you interested in this compound? It's kind of useless. He was testing it against the ribosomes of E. coli. He said, "Oh, very interesting chemistry." Yeah, chemistry. Okay. And here is a test against spirochetes. So you see, it's exceptionally potent against treponema that causes syphilis, Borrelia burgdorferi, and all other Borrelias. And here's an environmental. So apparently, Mother Nature makes compounds like hydromycin A that target spirochetes. So they target spirochetes. So what we found, remember I was telling you, I look at the structure, I don't understand how it penetrates into cells. So we measured that on the right side. You see in blue, it rapidly, almost immediately gets into cells of spirochetes, but not E. coli. So apparently it's smuggled in on a transporter. We think on the transporter of peptides. We're still working out the nature of the transporter. But that's what happens. And that explains a terrific property of this compound. It is extremely safe. So we were not able to notice any toxicity either with human cells or in an animal model. Usually there is some toxicity, and what you aim at a good therapeutic window, a window between toxicity and cure. With this compound, I don't know what the window is because we don't see any toxicity. And this finding explains why it doesn't get into cells unless you have the correct transporter, and the correct transporter is present only in spirochetes, not in human cells, not in other bacteria. So that's kind of neat. So Wendy Wu in my lab did an animal study of hydromycin by comparison to ceftriaxone. And you see that it is very efficacious both by injection and, what's important, by oral administration. So that's very encouraging because, of course, patients prefer to take pills rather than injections. And in collaboration with Lyndon Hugh, we examined another interesting thing. So Lyndon and his team put the compound into a bait. Mice, for whatever reason, like peanut butter, so the bait is essentially peanut butter. And then they eat hydromycin and clear themselves of the disease. So Lyndon and I are now thinking of a scenario where we spread America with the bait. Mice eat it and we get rid of Lyme disease.
This will be the multiple times, so I didn't.
Grand idea proposition. All right, so the last slide that I want to show you is indeed, so we set out to find compounds that do not harm the microbiome, and here's the real test for that in the mice. You see those two huge peaks. That is an expansion of pathogenic enterococcus that happens when you take amoxicillin or ceftriaxone. And this is typical for any broad-spectrum antibiotic. They suppress some bacteria, and then others that are insensitive bloom. And usually, unfortunately, to us, the stuff that blooms is not the stuff that we want. And then nothing really happens when you add hydromycin. So that sort of is what we expected from its narrow spectrum of action. All right, so here are a number of ways in which we think we can intervene with Lyme disease. First of all, it would be very useful to hit the infection early and strong if we can. And because you can imagine that the shorter the time the pathogen spends in the body, the higher the probability that you will cure it without any sort of consequences like PTLDs, right? So if we can hit it with something that selectively and strongly kills the pathogen, that would be terrific. And so I think Disulfiram is promising in that regard. Hydromycin A, Ying Zhang is developing combinations of known antibiotics that hit the pathogen strongly. So I think that's a very useful approach. And then on PTLDS itself, where we could intervene again with better antibiotics to get rid of the lingering pathogen which may be there, and restoring the microbiome that may be a causal reason for PTLDS. Okay, so thanks to my team, discovering and developing new drugs takes a lot of muscle, as you can imagine, and my collaborators and support, and especially the Cohen Foundation for their generous